So there's 30 milliliters, good for 2.5 gallons. Hi, and welcome back to Purple Color Life. In today's video, we're here with the Ford 8N tractor, and we're talking about storage of fuel, or fuel to use in something like a tractor, but we're talking about a lot more than that. So we are going to talk about the fuel system in the Ford 8N and our Ford Workmaster tractor and any classic tractor, but we're also going to talk about storage, fuel stabilizers, products like Sta-Bil, products like Ethanol Shield, products like lead substitutes, and talking about storage of gasoline, whether that gasoline is ethanol-free or with ethanol, regular unleaded gasoline from the pump. Here's a quick teaser, and we're going to talk about this through the video, but I actually make a combination fuel that is a combination of the gasoline, whether that's ethanol-free like this jug is, or regular pump gasoline that contains 15% ethanol like this jug is, and a product called Ethanol Shield, and Sta-Bil Marine 360, and in some cases a lead substitute. So let's talk about when and how to mix these and why one of these on their own can't do everything you need it to do if you're storing a piece of equipment. Now, when I say storing a piece of equipment, I'm talking about 2 weeks. So if you've got the same fuel in the tank for 2 weeks, you need at least 2 of these products in that fuel. If you're storing something for all winter long, or a whole summer, or a whole year, or multiple years, you just need to increase the amount of the blend in your fuel system. We're going to walk all through those steps in this video. So you've heard me say time and time again that it's always best to use ethanol-free gasoline in your tractors that have carbureted systems, in zero-turn mowers that have carburetors, in boats that have carburetors, in anything on water, whether that's a jet ski or a fuel-injected outboard engine. It's always best to use ethanol-free gasoline. But I know a couple things about ethanol-free gasoline. One, it's not available everywhere. So if you are in one of the states or regions where it's really hard to, if not impossible, to get ethanol-free gasoline, you've probably been saying to yourself, Chad, I can't get ethanol-free gasoline. What do I do now? The second thing is, ethanol-free gasoline is a lot more expensive. We're talking $1 more per gallon, or in some cases more than that. So when you're weighing the pros and cons of ethanol-free, I understand that it's not always an option, and I found a solution for that. Now let's talk about why ethanol is a problem in gasoline in the first place. It's because it attracts moisture, and anytime you have moisture in a fuel system, that's a problem, especially with a carbureted system. You don't want moisture in that fuel system. You don't want moisture in a gas tank. It promotes rust. It promotes the metal breaking down in your carburetor. It promotes a lot of different issues with the hoses and gaskets. So that's why ethanol is a problem, but also any moisture in your system is a problem. Any moisture in your fuel tank or throughout the fuel system causes corrosion and separates in the fuel. Today's modern engines are especially sensitive to moisture in the system. So if you have a newer zero-turn mower like me, maybe you're thinking, hey, I'm not talking about an old tractor here. I've got a new piece of equipment. It can handle the new gasoline just fine. That's not the case. Ethanol and gasoline can damage a new piece of equipment just as easily as it can damage an older piece of equipment. Some common problems you might have if you have moisture in your fuel system, whether that's from the ethanol or just moisture due to condensation in an empty tank space, and we'll talk about that later in the video. But if you have those issues, you're going to have problems starting the machine. It's going to misfire. It may not run smooth. It may not idle smooth. You may have trouble. You may need to use starting ether to get it to start. So there's all kinds of issues that can happen. And a lot of people think that happens if you're storing something for the wintertime. And that certainly can be true. If you're storing something 2, 3, 4, 5 months out of the year, absolutely. Ethanol or moisture in the fuel can be a problem. But it can also happen if you've stored something for 2 weeks or longer. Today's gasoline has a shelf life of approximately 2 weeks. So it's always best to get your gasoline somewhere that goes through a lot of gasoline so that it's always fresh in the tank, but then also not to store gasoline for long amounts of time. And I've been guilty of this. I've had cans and cans and cans of gasoline that I've had kind of in reserve for emergency use, but storing gasoline just leads to problems with moisture accumulating inside that gasoline, whether it's ethanol-free gasoline or ethanol regular unleaded. So you might be saying to yourself, why do I possibly need 3 things? Let's look at Sta-Bil, for example. The Sta-Bil 360 Marine says right on it, ethanol treatment and stabilizer. But what I've found after a lot of research, and I'll put some video links to videos by other people, because some people have done some really scientific tests. And what they've found about Sta-Bil, especially the 360 Marine version of it, is that it is designed for marine use, and it's excellent for boats and watercraft, and it really does well in water environments where there's a lot of humidity or moisture around. It includes a lot of corrosion inhibitors, so that's going to keep your fuel tank from rusting. That's going to keep any metal fuel lines you have from corroding. It's going to keep components inside the carburetor from corroding. But what it doesn't do well is target ethanol. Even though it says it does, testing shows that Sta-Bil, while it's a great corrosion inhibitor, is not great for ethanol treatment. So that's where the Ethanol Shield comes in, and this is why I combine the two. So you get your Sta-Bil, which is the best example of corrosion exhibitor in a test by Project Farm, and I'll put that video link down in the description. But then you've got your Ethanol Shield that is designed specifically to capture moisture in fuel. So unlike Sta-Bil and other fuel stabilizer products, Ethanol Shield actually bonds to moisture and then passes it through the system. So it goes through the combustion system of your engine. Whereas Sta-Bil still keeps the moisture separate from the fuel, and that causes problems. So when you combine these two things, you get the best of both worlds. Fuel stabilizer treatment, especially for ethanol in the gasoline, and corrosion inhibitor. Now you've got the third product here, and I've mentioned this in a previous video. This is lead substitute. And if you have an old piece of equipment like a classic tractor or even an old rototiller, anything that was made, in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, a lot of times they were made to run on lead gasoline, and you need some type of lead substitute in the system to make it work properly. Now, in a lot of cases, if those engines have been rebuilt, the new components in the engine are fine to run with unleaded fuel. So it really depends on the situation. In my Ford Workmaster tractor, the previous owner said the engine had never been rebuilt, so he said always add the lead substitute to the fuel before you put it in, and I've always done that with the Workmaster. The other thing I want to point out about Ethanol Shield is it does have conditioners in it for the rubber and plastic parts of the entire fuel system. So a lot of fuel systems now have rubber fuel lines, and this will help protect and condition those rubber parts. This is a great point in the video. If you haven't already clicked that like button, we'd really appreciate if you'd click the like button. If you can see the hype button, we'd love if you'd press that button also. And if you're not subscribed to Purple Collar Life, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell beside it. We've got lots of content about the Ford 8N tractor. I know that's a really popular topic on our channel, so I'll put a link down below to the whole playlist of Ford 8N videos. You can check those out. I also want to mention, if you're looking for these products, I do have Amazon affiliate links down below. Again, this is September 2025, and I will talk in the video about how much I pay for these products and the price per gallon that it's going to add to your fuel, because let's do that math and find out how much it costs. For example, in this 5-gallon jug of regular pump gasoline that does have ethanol in it, if I'm going to add the Ethanol Shield and the Sta-Bil, how much per gallon does that add to my cost? So these two products, when blended together, really do complement each other. And there has been testing done that says for 5 years, this will keep your carburetor from gumming up, will keep ethanol from hurting your system. So again, I've only been using this Ethanol Shield for about 4 or 5 months for the summertime in our weed whackers and our lawn mowers and the zero-turn mower, because a lot of times things may sit for 2 weeks or longer at a time between using up all the fuel in the can and all the fuel in the machines. So this I've had really good luck with, and I actually bought the big jug because the single serve versions you pour into your 1-gallon or 5-gallon gas jug aren't as economical as just buying it a gallon at a time. The same thing with the Sta-Bil. This is an 8-ounce bottle I've got right here, but it's a lot better deal if you buy it 32 ounces at a time. So imagine something you've had stored all winter long, for example, like our ski boat, and in the spring you take it out and it's not running right. It doesn't start right. We've had that issue before with our Nautique, because the ProTech ignition is a combination of injection and carburation, and that fuel has to be really perfect for the engine to run right, for the ignition to get the timing right, to get the injection right. And we've had a lot of problems before with fuel that had moisture in it, even though we've tried to do everything right. But in the last several years, we've had no issues because we've been treating the fuel properly and using only ethanol-free gasoline. So let's talk about what this mix is good for. This mix that we're going to be putting in the 5-gallon jugs is perfect for something like a classic tractor, a zero-turn mower or other lawn mowers, string trimmers, jet skis, boats, chainsaws, anything that you're mixing fuel for 2-stroke engines or 4-stroke engines. This is one way to keep moisture out of that fuel system. So we're going to go ahead and mix this up. The Ethanol Shield we'll put in first. Remember, this is ethanol-free gasoline, but I'm still going to put Ethanol Shield in here because this will help with any moisture in the can from condensation, in the fuel tanks as the fuel sits over time. The Ethanol Shield says right on it for all gas engines, including ATVs, auto, marine, motorcycles, power equipment. Pour 1 ounce per 2.5 gallons of gasoline into the tank or storage container. For long-term storage, so if you're storing this for 6 months, a year at a time, you're going to want to use 1 ounce per gallon. But in both instances, you want to run the engine after you put your fuel mix in there so that it gets a chance to pump through the carburetor, through the fuel lines, and treat the system. Automotive, this says 1 ounce per 10 gallons of gasoline is fine, and marine, 1 ounce per 5 gallons of gasoline is fine. So what I've done, because obviously, unlike Sta-Bil, which has a measurement tool on the side of the bottle, ethanol-free, if you're buying the 1 gallon size, you're going to have to measure those out for your fuel systems. And I want to use the 1 ounce per 2.5 gallons of gas. 1 ounce is equal to 30 milliliters. So in a 5-gallon tank, I need to use 60 milliliters. I'll put an Amazon link to these. These are really easy to put down in that gallon bottle and squeeze out an ounce at a time, which is 30 milliliters. So there's 30 milliliters, good for 2.5 gallons. I've mentioned this can in the past. This is the Shore can. These 2 cans are my easiest fuel cans to pour from. This one because it's got the old type nozzle and the pop vent on the back, so you can pour much easier than the new style that have the vent within the nozzle. But then this one has a squeeze lever and the rotating nozzle. And then the fill port's just back here on the back. So now we'll have both cans, 5 gallons, treated with Ethanol Shield. And you can reuse this, as many times as you want to in the tanks. And you can see to treat 10 gallons, we've used this much of the bottle so far. And I had actually already removed 1 ounce for treating fuel previously. Now the Sta-Bil we're going to add in also, or this is 1 ounce treats 10 gallons. So we need half an ounce to this marker for each can. Now the lead substitute, I only put directly into the tank of the Ford Workmaster. So when I put 10 gallons of fuel in it, you can see I've drawn these marked lines on the side to see how far down I'm pouring to. But this I add directly to the tank. Now with any of these, once you've mixed those in there, you need to get them, you need to shake them up or mix them around so that that stuff all gets mixed through. And like I mentioned before, you want to put it into the fuel tank and then start the engine, let it run for 3 or 4 minutes just to pump that fuel through the system. Now, if you have existing fuel in the tank, as long as it's already been treated, that's no problem. But if you have existing fuel in the tank that hasn't been treated, you want to add enough Ethanol Shield and Sta-Bil 360 Marine to also cover that fuel that's already in the tank. Now, I have my 1 gallon gas tank here too. This is where I put my premix in. I've been using the AMSOIL 100:1 ratio in this can, but I also add the Ethanol Shield and the Sta-Bil Marine to this can if I'm going to be letting it sit for more than 2 weeks. Now, this time of year, in the fall, when we're using the leaf blower, the backpack blower a lot, it goes through a lot of fuel. So I don't add these in during the fall because we're burning through gallons of fuel at a time. But in the summertime, the springtime, and then the dead of winter, I mix these ingredients also in with my 2-stroke fuel mix. A lot of people ask about how much fuel should be in the tank for storage, especially when it comes to something like a tractor that's going to be sitting all winter or a boat. You want to fill them up as much as possible. You want the least amount of air in the tank as possible. Fuel along the sides of the fuel tank actually helps protect it from corrosion. Air does not. Air gets moisture in it, and that starts the rust and corrosion process in a metal fuel tank. So in your boat, in your tractor, fill that tank all the way up with the treated fuel so that you don't have as much airspace. All that airspace does is just let opportunities for condensation to build up in the tank. Now with things like string trimmers in the winter time or snow blowers in the springtime, I used to try to run them completely out of gas, get all the fuel out, or even a generator. But that's actually a mistake. You want to leave some fuel in the system as long as it has those conditioners in it to keep all the gaskets and rubber good. When you take all the fuel out of the system, it lets those things dry out. So that's a mistake I made for years and years. Now I know the difference. It's better to run something like the Ethanol Shield in it, let it run through the system, and store with fuel in the system. I mentioned earlier in the video that I would talk about the costs. Okay, so Ethanol Shield, if you buy it a gallon at a time, again, Amazon link down below. We'd really appreciate it if you use that link if you're going to be buying this. If you buy it a gallon at a time, current price is $78.60. That'll treat 1,280 gallons. So that works out to be 6 cents per gallon. Sta-Bil 360 Marine. Got my notes right here. This is $23.21 for a 32-ounce bottle. Remember, this is only an 8-ounce bottle, but I recommend the 32-ounce bottle. If you buy that 32-ounce bottle, you get 320 gallons worth of treatment in it. That is 7 cents per gallon. So when you combine these two in your fuel, even if you use more than they recommend, which I use a little bit more than they recommend, even if you're spending 30 cents a gallon more, but you're saving $1 a gallon, it might make it worthwhile for those of you guys who don't have access to ethanol-free gasoline to buy these additives, these fuel stabilizers, and use them to prevent those problems that ethanol causes. As you saw, I use them even with the ethanol-free gasoline because it's just cheap insurance. Now, if you came here for the Ford 8N information, I made a video in the past about how to tell how much fuel is in the tank, and that'll be important when you're adding the additional fuel and the Ethanol Shield and the Sta-Bil to your fuel tank. So I'll put a link to that video up above, how to tell how much fuel is in your Ford 8N tank, because there is no gas gauge. Now, I mentioned there were 2 other videos I wanted to reference, and I'll put those links down below in the description. One was Project Farm, and it's a recent video where he did some testing on how corrosion resistant these products are. Sta-Bil tested the best in that testing. He tested a lot of different products. He did not test the Ethanol Shield, but in his testing, Sta-Bil did the absolute best. In fact, it stopped any corrosion for 5 years, the 5-year test that he did on a piece of metal. So that's why I use the Sta-Bil in my systems. Another video that maybe some of you have seen is Chicanic. She does a lot of videos about small engine repair from her experiences of owning a shop that repairs, you know, chainsaws, trimmers, lawnmowers, and she swears by the Ethanol Shield. So about a year ago, I got some of this to try it, and I can tell you that I haven't had any issues with carburetor issues or things gumming up in the system or fuel separation since using the Ethanol Shield. So once again, those links will be down below in the description. You can get them from Amazon. You can get this great Shore can gas can. This is my favorite can that I've used because you can't buy the good ones like this anymore. So this one at least vents separately. It does have a turn down nozzle, which makes it really easy to pour into your piece of equipment, and then it dispenses using this handle. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative and entertaining, please give us a big thumbs up. Leave those comments down below. I am by no means the all-knowing expert when it comes to fuel stabilizers and fuel systems. A lot of you can leave comments that will help other people out as they watch this video and read through the comments. And then if you haven't already subscribed, we'd love to see you click that subscribe button and follow us along on our adventures here at Purple Collar Life. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again the next time. The other reason I wanted that full gallon size ethanol shield, because I've got 40 gallons of fuel up to the brim in the pontoon boat to use the stabilizer in, and about 26 gallons in the Sport Nautique, and about 12 gallons in the jet ski. So all those summertime water sports pieces of equipment need the ethanol shield in them. For the wintertime, I also put the Sta-Bil 360 Marine in that also. Use that same type of blend. Might as well put some in that big tank too.